Yesterday we ended off with a question. The question was that we've spoken so much about the power of blowing the shofar and how that's the core thing of Rosh Hashanah, and that's where Hashem invites us, so to speak, to participate and to invoke His energy for the new year. Because Hashem, we said, creates the world through speaking, and Hashem plays the role of a king, and both of those require an audience. So we're the audience. That's our role. We play the role of audience, the one who says, we want to hear more. We want to hear what it is that you have to say, what it is that you have to teach. So the question then was, what about a Shabbos? If Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos as it does this year, so then what? What do you do about us being the audience? And we said, Shabbos plus Rosh Hashanah together, the combination of those two incredible spiritual energies is so compelling and so powerful and so overwhelming that you actually don't need us to do anything. Everything is done for us, like on a Shabbos, right? What's the purpose of Shabbos? That you sit back and you relax. You've done your work, and now you can afford to rest. So that's basically what happens on this Shabbos that coincides with Rosh Hashanah. You've done your work, you can rest, Hashem takes care of the rest of it. So yesterday we ended off with a question. If that's the case, why do we blow the shofar on the second day of Rosh Hashanah? If Hashem did everything on the first day, and clearly, without a question, whatever Hashem does is perfect, so it's perfect. It doesn't get better than this. Which, by the way, just parenthetically, if you consider what kind of a year we've had this year, it's quite reassuring to know that the coming year, Hashem's taking care of it. It's a year that starts on the Shabbos, it's in Hashem's hands. That's quite reassuring. So, yeah, we'll have a sabbatical. So the thing is, why do we blow the shofar the second day? So to understand that, sometimes you have to understand a thing in context. If you really want to appreciate what's going on, you have to understand it in context. And to understand it in context, this is the thought. The reason that Rosh Hashanah is the anniversary is a profound concept, by the way. The reason that Rosh Hashanah is celebrated on the anniversary of the creation of Adam, and not today. Today's the 25th of Elul. Today, work it backwards. Think about it. If Rosh Hashanah is the day of the creation of the first human, then you go backwards. The 25th of Elul is the day of the beginning of creation. Today should be Rosh Hashanah. It's the 25th of Elul. Today should be the day. That's when Hashem began to create His world. Why do we not celebrate Rosh Hashanah on the day of the beginning of creation and Dafka celebrate on the day of the creation of man? Why? Or humans? Because humans give purpose to the whole of creation. Everything else that was created, the Gemara says clearly that Adam was created at the end of creation to illustrate that everything else was there as a preparation, so that by the time we would appear on the scene, all of the resources that we would need would already be there. So food, plants, animals, whatever it was, they would all be there. The climate would already be there. The earth would already be there. Can you imagine it? Just think about it logically for a second. Imagine if man had been created, for argument's sake, on day one. To be created in what? There wasn't yet dry land. If it was created on day two, there wouldn't be anything to eat. So the fact is, Hashem designed the world in such a way that everything should be ready for us by the time that we arrive. And that carries a very significant lesson, which is that we are the ones who give meaning and purpose to everything else. Not only are the resources of the world created before us, like minerals, plants, animals, etc., but even the spiritual realms, the great angels, the higher spiritual worlds that we don't even begin to comprehend, they were also created before us, because the purpose of their existence is to facilitate us being able to serve Hashem. Fascinating, isn't it? So, for example, it helps us to meditate, helps us to have spiritual awareness, helps us to have a graded spiritual ladder that we can climb in order to become closer to Hashem. So every single thing that exists merely and purely so that we could come onto the scene and give it a sense of purpose. That's why we celebrate Rosh Hashanah on the creation of humans, because it's only from that point on that everything else becomes meaningful. That tells you something fascinating. That tells you that Hashem's goal and intention for the creation of the world was not to have great and lofty spiritual beings. It was not to have realms where there might exist some kind of spiritual perfection. The entire purpose of why Hashem created everything was that there should be people, and those people should serve Hashem. Now we know very well that those people don't do such a good job. We know very well that those people are lazy sometimes, are distracted sometimes, are tempted sometimes, are angry sometimes, are rebellious sometimes. We know we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Which in turn teaches an incredibly profound lesson. There's something greater than perfection. You imagine this? There is something greater than perfection. Why? It's quite logical. Because Hashem already had perfection before He created the world. So if creating the world and creating us, who are the epicenter of the world, because we're the ones who can give meaning and purpose to the world, if that was something meaningful to Hashem, it can't be that that was because Hashem wanted more perfection. Well, that's ridiculous. If you already have perfection, by definition, you can't have more perfection. Because if you have more perfection, it means the original perfection actually wasn't perfect. So Hashem already had perfection of His own accord. He is perfect. Why did He create us? Because there's something that is more valuable than perfection. Something that is more precious than perfection. What is that? That's when the audience shows you that in fact they're not perfect. And they're not as smart as you. And they're not as great as you. But they are enthusiastic to want to be connected to you. That is actually greater than perfection. Or to put it into simple, very simple terms. You may, in your house, you may have hanging on your wall a beautiful piece of art attributed to some incredible artist. And you may, in your house, also have hanging on your fridge a scrolled picture that looks like, I don't know what, looks like some kind of aliens. It's got arms that come out of the ears, and the hands have 6 fingers on the one hand and 3 fingers on the other hand. And the mouth doesn't necessarily align with the eyes. And it says underneath it, in bad spelling, my family. So here's the question. Which one is more valuable? If I'm looking for artistic precision, and what the resale value will be on the market, well, then the famous painting on the wall is worth a tremendous amount, and it's certainly worth more than the thing on your fridge. But if that piece of art happened to be stolen or, God forbid, burnt in a fire, you'd claim insurance and you'd actually do quite well off the deal. But that scrunched up piece of paper with the people with the 6 and the 3 fingers, that comes from your child or your grandchild or your niece or your nephew or wherever it might come from, that's precious. So something incredible is going to happen this Rosh Hashanah. And only happens once every few years. It's something incredible. What is it? This Rosh Hashanah, Hashem's going to remind us of how precious we are. Because on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, He's going to do it perfectly. Because when He does it, it's perfect. And He's doing the work for us this Rosh Hashanah. So He's going to create a perfect Rosh Hashanah on day 1. And then on day 2, He's going to say, you know what's greater than perfection? Your imperfection. Because you're going to get up on the second day of Rosh Hashanah and you're going to blow the shofar. And you're going to say, it's Shechiyanu, which is an incredible thing to say, like as if we're doing it from scratch. Shechiyanu is supposed to be the first time something ever happens. It's not the first time. You did Rosh Hashanah yesterday, and Hashem Himself did it yesterday. Yes, that's what He wants to illustrate to us. That your input and your investment, even though it is far from perfect, is so magnificent and so beautiful that it's actually an upgrade on my perfection that I did on day 1. So if there's ever a Rosh Hashanah that illustrates to us the value of humans, it's this Rosh Hashanah, which coincides with the Shabbos, which tells us that Hashem loves us for who we are, not for the perfection that we sometimes wish we could achieve. And I think that's an incredibly powerful thing to remember, not only obviously on Rosh Hashanah, but all year round. It's an incredible concept.